But, Mark, let's move on into the next part. And if you are an avid Onside Kick mock draft listener, you're going to notice we're changing something up a little bit. Because I was doing some thinking, Mark, for this mock draft. Mm-hmm. And usually what we do, because there's 32 picks, we would do the top 10. Then we would kind of do 11 and 11. Kind of to try to split it up as evenly as possible. And I was like, that last team in the second one, that 21st pick, is always like, oh, this is a playoff team. So I was like, why not just push that into the last segment, have 12 in the last one, have 10 in this one. So we're going to have 10 here in the middle. The last segment, we will have the remaining 12 picks.
I'm willing to bet if we didn't say anything,
no one would have noticed. That was a me thing. Like I was looking at it yesterday, and I was like, this kind of bugs me. So I changed it. Let's start with you, though.
Cool.
We'll go 11 through 20. What's your 11 through 20 looking like?
So at 11, the Bengals are going to go with Byron Murphy, cornerback out of Washington. The Packers at number 12 going to go with Rashawn Gary, defensive end out of Michigan.
I keep wanting to say Gray.
Gary. It's Gary. The Browns at number 13 going to go with Marquise, your favorite Hollywood Brown.
Hell yeah.
Wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Then we got the Redskins going with Josh Allen, linebacker out of Kentucky. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end. Clemson going to the Panthers. The 16 Eagles are going with Julian Love, cornerback out of Notre Dame. Then the Broncos at 17, Deontay Thompson, safety out of Alabama. At 18, Dolphins, Montez Sweet, defensive end, Mississippi State.
Isn't it Sweat?
I'm going to call him Sweet. I like it better. 19, the Colts going with A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss. And then 20, the Titans going to go Brian Burns, edge rusher out of Florida State.
I mean, what you made me think of when you said Montez Sweet, I was like, no, I think it's Sweat. And then when you said, I'm just going to call him Sweet, I think of the old wrestling thing with, what was it, Scott Hall? Too sweet? That's right. All I can think about.
I mean, honestly, if you're a football player and you had the chance to have your last name be Sweet, that's awesome.
Too sweet. I would go back to the WWE reference. But for me, going through my 11 through 20, the Bengals at 11 going Devin White, the linebacker from LSU. Then the Packers going to go defensive end in Clelin Ferrell out of the Clemson Tigers. The Browns going same pick you had him, Marquise Hollywood Brown, wide receiver from the Oklahoma Sooners. Then at number 14, the Redskins going cornerback out of Georgia, DeAndre Baker. Then the Panthers going Deontay Thompson, safety from Alabama, Roll Tide. Then same pick you had for the Eagles, Julian Love, the cornerback out of Notre Dame. Then the Broncos going quarterback. Case Keenum was not working out. They're going to get Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback from the Ohio State University. The Dolphins will go pass rusher like you had them go, but I've got Jalen Ferguson, the defensive end from Louisiana Tech, being the guy at 18. Then at 19, the Colts bolster up that defense with Dexter Lawrence, the DT from Clemson. And then the Titans, or the Titans, they're going to take N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver from Arizona State, with the 20th overall pick. And the first team I want to ask you about is the Redskins. We have different picks. You're going more their linebacker need. Mm-hmm. I'm going more of their cornerback need. They also could use wide receiver.
Yep.
But the thing I want to ask you about them first before we get into why we chose who we did and kind of look at them, the question I want to ask is about quarterback. Because we already had some quarterback-heavy teams. Is there a possibility that the Redskins, let's say like in my situation where Dwayne Haskins is there, I personally did not have this happen, but if he's there, could this team go, we don't know what Alex Smith is going to be following the Theismann-like injury. Would you take a quarterback if like a Haskins or a Herbert are there for the Redskins?
And things are looking worse for Alex Smith as he's had multiple surgeries due to infection as well. Things have not gone well for him. And if I'm sitting there, if I'm anybody, I say it right now, but if I'm anybody in the NFL and the Redskins organization, I'm going to go under the assumption that that Alex Smith is not going to come back. Because He's
well,
gonna
not
be,
just that. Colt McCoy broke his leg too.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't care about Colt McCoy. Because
you could start him
when it comes to long-term future, I didn't care about Colt McCoy.
True.
I'm sorry that his leg is also broken. But for the Redskins, I'm sitting there saying, yes, I need a quarterback. You know, I'm under the assumption Alex Smith is done. He's retired. He's gone. There's no way he comes back.
Well, not just because of the injury, but he's also old as well.
Yes, he'll be 35 before if he comes back next year, he'll be 35 when he starts playing. That's pretty old. And that's pretty, I'm going to make some Alex Smith fan angry, and I like Alex Smith, but that's pretty old for a guy who's not Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning before he had his terrible year, Aaron Rodgers. You know, that's pretty bad. Pretty old for a guy who's not incredible. You got to move on. You know, so the problem that I have as the Redskins here is Justin Herbert, Dwayne Haskins. On my board, they're already gone. And I know that in the first one, had like Drew Lock go in the first round, and he still could.
Well, and they could get a Drew Lock, Daniel Jones. They could get those guys in the second. They don't have to burn a first round pick.
And you know exactly these top type of guys are gone, and there's no guarantee that either one of those two are even going to be in the draft. Who knows? Because either one of them could decide to not come out for the draft. But I sit there and I look at Josh Allen. And he's a guy who, compared to our two, he's obviously much lower on mine than he is on yours, but he's a guy who kind of fell on mine. And I don't think that the Redskins, as much as you need a quarterback, you can't pass that up this time. You know, you really can't. And it's so dangerous for them because of the fact that they've taken quarterback because, you know, they obviously had Kirk Cousins, didn't work out. They had RG3 that they drafted really high. That didn't work out.
Got injured.
They went and got Alex Smith through trade, and that's not worked out. So they've been going at it and trying things, and it's just not working. There's only so many times that you can just throw your crap at the wall and hope that it sticks. You know, it's not like they've been going for scrubs or anything like that. You know, it reminds me of, and we don't have to talk about this team necessarily, I just want to throw this out there really quick.
Yeah.
It reminds me of John Elway and the Broncos, who you have them taking another quarterback, and it's like, you know, they fail on Paxton Lynch. They fail essentially on Case Keenum. And it's another one of those times of like, is John Elway ever going to be able to have a guy that John Elway wants to have as his quarterback?
Yeah. And that's why, for me, I'll just throw it out there, why I had them go with Dwayne Haskins. Because it's a quarterback for a team that hasn't really, like, Case Keenum is not really the guy. And, like, one interesting thing that I saw today is everyone's ragging on Kirk Cousins for how the Vikings have been, especially after yesterday's game.
Yeah.
And Chris Carter came out and basically, kind of a defense of Kirk Cousins, was like, hey, let's keep it in perspective. If Case Keenum was the quarterback of this Vikings team, the Vikings would only have 2 wins. Like, that is what, like, how bold he was going.
Well, I think people in Viking land, Minnesota, are remembering that, Pat Shurmur was a good offensive coordinator.
See, I told you that he deserves some credit.
No, he did. I never took that away. I loved him as an offensive coordinator. He's a bad head coach, but he's a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that to me was a big problem. But that's besides, like, with the Redskins, to me, I wouldn't take a quarterback in the first round. Like, if I'm going to take one, because I've got 2 thoughts on this. First, let's see, where's their next pick as of right now? So their next pick would be, let me find Washington. So their top 3 picks right now would be 14th overall, 49th overall in the second round, 80th overall in the third round.
At 49, you could probably get another quarterback.
Exactly. Like, I'm looking at guys like you could target a Will Greer may still be there, a Drew Lock, maybe a Jarrett Stidham, depending on how he rises and falls. Maybe a Daniel Jones is still there at that point. Like, you could get a guy later in the draft because... Or you could do the second option, which I think they should do anyways.
Sucks next year?
Just suck next year. Like, basically, re-sign Mark Sanchez. He's your starting quarterback. Re-sign anybody.
Can you get Josh McCown in there? Can you get Tyrod Taylor?
Because right now they've got, like, Josh Johnson and Mark Sanchez. I'd pay Mark Sanchez in there $250 $100,000 to be my quarterback. Because think about this. If you could load this team up on all the defensive talent in this draft and some of the skill positions at wide receiver, and then next year basically kind of do what the Colts did. We've got a team. Let's put a guy like Curtis Painter in there, and let's suck for Tua. Could you imagine then them getting Tua Tagovailoa and having him on this team? Because he's going to be the top quarterback and is the next guy.
Assuming, yeah.
Well, he's the next guy we're hyping up for the quarterback position. And so far, he looks the part. And to me, he is the rightful owner of the 2018 Heisman Award and got highway robberyed by the Heisman Club, because that's all the Heisman is a fan club nowadays. I believe he was the rightful Heisman over Kyler Murray, a guy who doesn't even want to play football at the next level. That's what I would do if I was the Redskins. Let's just load up on defensive talent. And that's why, for me, looking at what was there, hey, let's go get that cornerback. Let's get a guy like DeAndre Baker that I can put in my backfield and kind of bolster that with Josh Norman and everything that I have so far, and then just load up on more defensive pieces and some offensive skill pieces as well.
I would just be a little scared of that idea in the sense of I think the Redskins are a good team and getting a lot of quality defensive talent and stuff like that. I don't think they're going to be bad enough to get a guy like Tua, that number one overall quarterback. They're not going to be bad enough to get that guy. And that's just a kind of a challenge for him.
It was the Texan game that Alex Smith has gotten injured. They lost that game, and ever since that game, they're 0-4.
Yeah, but they've also had backup quarterback get injured.
That's what I'm saying.
Mark Sanchez come out. But no, that's my point. They've had terrible luck. They're on quarterback 4.
Then sign Josh Johnson. And
so
have him be
yeah,
the
I mean, if you're gonna tank and you're gonna have a better defense because you're loading up on defense here, which your defense is already pretty good, and you're gonna have that, you're gonna run into a team where unless you're intentionally signing Nathan Peterman, you're not going to lose enough games.
That's a good one, Mark. That's what they do. 5-pick Peterman as your starting quarterback.
All 16 games.
He is the perfect Painter quarterback.
Yeah. Well, he's in a whole league of his own. Let's give him credit. I mean, the man would throw at least 40 interceptions.
And then it works even better because although this is not one of my MOs, then it gets E.J. Manuel still upset that Nathan Peterman would have a job over E.J. Manuel.
Yeah.
Because that really ticked off E.J. Manuel, that he didn't have a job in the NFL.
Ticked the world off.
But Nathan Peterman had a job in the NFL. The other team I want to mention before we go into the one prospect that I have in this round is, well, actually, no, we'll go into the prospect because you had him going to the Redskins. What are your quick thoughts on Josh Allen? Because he's a guy for me where now I'm just getting into the diving into the film hardcore with these guys because most of them are skipping their bowl games. So it's cool, I can watch your film and have the complete picture. What are your thoughts on him? Because he's all over the place. Some people have him where you have him. Some have him where I have him, where he's a top 5 guy. Others have top 10. And then there's some that have him top 15, top 20.
Yeah, I mean, I like him as a player quite a bit. I think the thing that you just kind of, I guess, are a little bit hesitant on is I just like some of these. As we sit here and stare at film and we watch game tape.
And we overanalyze.
Yeah, I like some of these players, these edge rushers, these defensive ends a little bit better. And obviously he's an outside linebacker, so that's a little bit different. But
man, them offensive linebackers, man, they're a tricky bunch.
Yeah, they seriously are. But, he is a very good player. He's a big type of player. He's an award winner. He is a guy who is 4 years in, he's a senior. There's a lot to like about him. I do like the idea that he could be a player who is very intelligent, a guy who can run a defense, a guy who can be a leader out there. I do like all of that, but when you sit here and you look at some of these defensive ends, these edge rushers, these just freak talents, part of it just kind of pushes him back for a little bit, and he could easily be that guy who continues to rise. But he could also be that kind of not mid-round, but middle of the first round steal for a team.
No, I think that if there's anyone, because we kind of talked about this in the first mock draft where we threw out the who could be the riser, who could be the faller. He's showing already that as draft season goes on, I just think there's only one way for him to go, and that's going to go up. Like his draft stock, picture it like a nice loaf of bread that's in the oven right now. All it's going to do is rise. That's all it's going to do is that bread is just going to rise and rise and rise. Who knows how high it rises to? Top 10, top 5, top 3, top 2.
Yeah.
But he has I don't see his draft stock falling like a Ed Oliver, who both you and I had as number 2 in the first one, and now he's like a sub out of the top 5, almost out of the top 10.
And the fortunate thing for Allen here is he doesn't have that same criticism that a lot of guys will get of, well, he's not playing real talent. The guy's in the SEC, and he's a turnover machine. He's going to get tons of sacks.
14 sacks in the SEC.
Yeah, this guy is the real deal, and he's competing against actual talent out there. So he's got that to go for him. It'll be interesting to see what we get from him when we actually get to the combine. I think that's going to be a big thing for him because
if he runs those drills.
If he runs those drills well, if he is kind of having a ton of bench reps, if he's fast on the 40 in the cone drill, and he's doing well, he's going to be a guy who's going to shoot himself right up to the top of this draft. But time's going to tell on that.
Now, the last team we're going to go into is an AFC team, the Tennessee Titans. And for me, they're an interesting one because I'll be completely honest, I almost had them go with a guy that we're going to talk about later, so I'm going to save talking about him for the third segment. But I almost had them go Noah Fant here at the 20th overall pick. And that's because I look at their tight ends and I go, wow, they really need a tight end. But you know what they need more so than a tight end? A receiver. Yeah. Basically somebody who can catch the ball from Marcus Mariota, because they have gotten good production from some of these guys. I mean, Tawan Taylor has been a guy that's come up big for them in some games. I know Corey Davis, it's like some games he's really big. Other games it's like, where is Corey Davis?
Yeah.
And why did you draft him in the first round? Kind of a thing. I think for me, although linebacker is also a need right now for the Titans, I think this is another team that is basically, hey, there's a lot of defensive talent in this draft. We can go with this linebacker, but man, we might need to take a wide receiver in this first round so we get one of these top guys.
Yeah. They can, and at this point, there might not have been too many wide receivers off the board, so you might have a good shot. And the Titans, they need something to spark that offense. They've had some bad issues with injuries, with players not performing to what they were supposed to. They need something. For me though, I couldn't necessarily avoid them going with an edge player here with Brian Burns. So. And part of that, sure, they totally could and potentially should go with a offensive player to help out Marcus Mariota, to help out Derrick Henry even more. Although I don't know if Derrick Henry needs any help once he gets going. But here you have a player that I like in Brian Burns who he's not going to, if you look at his stats, he's not going to be Josh Allen, who we just talked about. He's not necessarily that crazy guy, but he's got some really good, solid stats. He is just kind of a very dominant player, and he's a player that, especially if you add him to what already is a pretty good defense for Tennessee, and just to add that pass rush, just to take it to a next level, would be a phenomenal addition, I think, to that team.
See, and I'm right now looking, there's a reason why I had them go wide receiver, not only because they need it, but I know you had this guy go a lot earlier than I did. You had him in your top 10, but N'Keal Harry, he's a guy to me, I look at the measurables alone for N'Keal Harry with a guy that's 6'4",
Yeah.
220. And you know me, Mark. Maybe this is the Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffries syndrome with watching your Bear teams here in Chicago with us living here. I like big wide receivers. I like those wide. It's basically
throw the ball up, get it.
Let him go get it. The only question I have about N'Keal Harry, which is why he's not necessarily higher, maybe like this is why a team like the Redskins at 14 didn't take him over like a DeAndre Baker, is I want to see what he runs at the combine. I want to see how quick he is. I want to see how he is on those cone drills, how he is in those drills for wide receivers. I want to see that speed when they're in their underwear, basically. Because, I mean, I know what you guys are probably saying. Ricky, you didn't see the tape at Arizona State? You didn't see what he's been doing this year? Have you been sleeping on him all year? Like, I know he's been good in college for Herm Edwards in his first year coaching the Arizona State Sun Devils. I just want to see how he does. What kind of numbers does he have at the combine? How does he run? Because that, to me, will skyrocket his draft stock in my mind. To where right now, depending on who you ask, he's the second, third wide receiver off the board with Hollywood Brown and AJ Brown being right there. But he's the guy for me that with this team, Corey Davis on one side, maybe he kind of pulls some attention off of Corey Davis so that Corey Davis can kind of breathe a little bit, because right now he's like the main guy to where teams can just go, hey, let's just shut him down. We shut him down. Who do they got? They don't got anyone that can beat us. So I mean, there's that kind of a level of why I went N'Keal Harry. And then I'll ask you, any other teams that you just want to throw out in this one that you're like, you look at your pick that you made and you're like, you know what? I want to give some love to this pick and this team.
I would give love to the Panthers. I think getting a great defensive end like Farrell would be a huge addition to that team. I mean, they've got a scary defense, and I actually kind of struggled a little bit with the Panthers because there was a few different directions that they could go, but I couldn't pass up bringing back that terrifying Panthers defense.
No, and I'm the same way. Like, I went defensive back rather than pass rusher, but for me, just the last one I want to give love to, this was the easiest pick of this range. Hollywood Brown to the Browns. Like, I know that I sound redundant saying Browns twice, but, like, you got Jarvis Landry, you got Baker Mayfield. Let's give him Hollywood Brown. You got Callaway, which you're hoping develops into something. Let's give him a dynamic playmaker in Marquise Hollywood Brown and see how he does with the Cleveland Browns, because like, this is the one thing where it's like Cleveland don't need defense. They got the defense. They just need to let that defense kind of grow and flourish, and if they add anything to it, let it be some veteran presence on that defense. But that was, to me, just the easiest pick for 11 through 20. And this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. What do you think about our 11 through 20? What do you think about the Titans, the Redskins, Josh Allen? Who would you have for these picks between 11 and 20? Let us know what you think down below in the comment section.